The first tap of a conductor's wand. The first rivet in a mile-high tower. The master link at the genesis of a never-ending chain. The moment a single empty canvas meets a singular master stroke. There is no one thing. Because now, there are many. Because soon, there will be more. Because one is ever the beginning. Like the first link in an infinite chain, or the first rivet in the tallest skyscraper. The master stroke is found in the masterpiece. What will you begin?
Is Greg gone? All right, I'll take it. Sorry, he was here. I swear. Welcome to World Blockchain Roundtables, episode 84. DeFi. Hosts for today are Satoshi Sean, entrepreneur and everyone's friend. Lisa Mighty Davis, Team Mighty organizer and owner of the new Mighty Lair. Reggie Middleton from Veritasium. Greg was here. He was going to be master of ceremony. So if he comes back, maybe let him take it over, whatever. But otherwise, I'm Joe, founder and architect of Dragon Chain. First, a quick update on the Lair ownership tokens for the World Blockchain Roundtable Lair from last week's episode. Each host from last week will receive 300 lot because Lisa and Greg were the only ones here because sorry I wasn't here. I felt bad. I wasn't able to join. Every topic contributor will receive 30 lot. Last week's theme was on how Santa would use blockchain, nominated by Jacob Wayne, who will also receive 30 lot.
I didn't feel bad until I watched and I saw it was just Lisa and Greg. Then I did feel really bad. But I had a Santa hat, beard, the whole thing. I was going to show up, but I was up way too late the night before.
Man. Yep. You should have been. I would have come for that, even if I was. I did not. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. All right.
It was good.
These tokens come with free edits in the layer, perpetual passive income, and most importantly, governance votes, so you can choose what the shows are and format and everything else. There is a result from, speaking of DAO votes, January themes. So the 4 weeks are New Year's blockchain resolutions, blockchain-based parallel systems. I think that's what I voted for. Blockchain in space and megatexas.eth. Please note that we did move the blockchain resolution one up. It came in fourth, but it would make better sense the first week because by the fourth week, all of the resolutions will have been broken, right? So let's see here. And the theme of the week this week is DeFi. So now we can cover current events and then get right into the questions and anything else. So where do you guys want to start? Current events.
Did we introduce Reggie?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I missed that part. We've got it talking about Christmas and Santa. And,
yeah,
I get really excited about Christmas.
I don't think he needs introduction though.
Everybody knows Reggie. Yeah, I was excited when I heard we were having a show about DeFi. I thought, well, we have to have the father of DeFi himself on. So
yes, thank you for doing that. So
cousin.
Okay.
There's Greg. Do you want to take over from here?
How far did you get into it? I'm actually on on my mobile hotspot, so I should be good to go.
Cool. Well, if we have to, we can swap back and forth if you lose again. Okay. We got through all the intros, the DAO vote, all that other stuff. So theme of the week, DeFi, current events.
Awesome. Okay. So I guess we're on to current events then. What have you guys been noticing? Reggie, it's good to have you back, man. Let's start with you. What have you been noticing, man?
I've been ignoring most of the FTX stuff. Tired of it.
Yep.
I'll give you a quick synopsis of my opinion. If you're an institution and you lost money in FTX, manifest destiny. You deserve to have lost every single penny. Good for you. You should know better next time. Put your hand in a black box and you don't know what's in it. You get your fingers chopped off. Who should you blame?
Yep. One thing I noticed though is like, and maybe you noticed this too. Anybody who had a Super Bowl ad last year, is particularly likely to be susceptible to FTX fraud.
Yes. Yes. Man. Yeah. Well, you know what else too? I think a big thing is you should have known too. It wasn't even a black box. It was you could call it a black box, but it is obvious that a genius kid in arbitrage trading comes in, starts an exchange, and how many billions were pushed into it? Where those weren't? I didn't know a single person who had an account on FTX. I think I had something because of the Blockfolio thing, right, with the announcement app stuff, but that wasn't even.
Anyway. Well, one of the things they like to do too is point out how this was some big fraud that calls for this need for regulation. But if you're talking U.S., the U.S. customers didn't get hit. They had a different set of rules. Right? Everybody who had ftx.us, which is where you get redirected if you try to go to their actual site from an IP address located here, right? Those actually redirected to a different site, and everybody there was being subject to rules that apparently they knew how to follow to not defraud people. It makes one wonder if by not having clear regulations and by having sort of aggressive regulations against DeFi, that we're driving things offshore as well as creating perverse business models like that.
Okay, so I got to jump in. I got to jump in right there.
Yeah,
so
I can promise.
FTX has nothing to do with DeFi. FTX
doesn't.
The reason why everybody lost their money is they ripped their assets off chain and sent them to somebody who they knew nothing about their financial statements, ownership structure, organization structure, credit risk, liquidity, capital reserves, nothing.
Yep. They traded their crypto for asset-backed derivatives, basically.
Yeah. And if you
I noticed something in the space with this in the past probably month. It's a new buzzword like DeFi. It's called CeFi, which I thought was it's like a cuss word to me. But a lot of projects are like, no, we're CeFi. They have nothing to do with DeFi. I want to make sure that's very clear. No DeFi. We're not DeFi. We're CeFi. Mm-hmm. And they're starting to really tout. We're registered in the British Virgin Islands, and where it's really. And you made a good point that like regular people really didn't get screwed over that bad. Not that many. It's mainly
the regular people that don't know it yet, because it's things like they lost their pension fund out of that Ontario
people that are obsessed with regulation, with centralized shit. They're the ones who jumped into it. They're like, we've all been talking about it. As soon as there's this XRP like entity, that's got 1 foot in the crypto world and 1 foot in the legacy system, and that's when everyone's going to come in, and that's when it's going to be great. And that's what FTX stood up and said, here we are. Here's our banner. We're what you've been waiting for. And all of those people jumped in, and they all got exactly what we kind of always knew they would.
Right. They won the stupid prize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's coming out now. CeFi, it's a big thing. There's now these clear, because these people came in, and you know how you were when you first dipped your toe into crypto. It's like, once you're in, So even though they lost money, they're like, hey, man, we're in crypto. We want this fixed. We want regulation. We want this. And there is a real big cry now for this CeFi that I've been just hearing rumblings about, and projects are coming out.
It's interesting too, because it's dovetailed with so I saw this news story yesterday, and you guys would not have believed this freaking headline. It was something like, there was nice alliteration to it. This was some serious propaganda where news.bitcoin.com was regurgitating an FBI press release where, unnamed authorities within the department were warning everybody of what they called pig butchering crypto scammers. Which I was like, did somebody launch a new NFT project? Because that sounds like a funny one. But in reality, they're referring to sort of a slang name for a type of scam, right? Where you get people to invest, you make it look like they're getting richer, so they put more and more in. And then once you fatten them up, you butcher them, right? They threw this into a headline, and news.bitcoin.com was just reiterating it pretty much uncritically, right? the propaganda machine was always going to come for us. The question was when, and I think that's happening now. What do you guys think?
Yeah, because I think those people have, like I said, they've entered the space. That group of people is it's not just a super tiny minority. They're here.
But wasn't this also like the crypto part of it is what exposed everything?
Yeah.
The part that was really the evil part was these big legacy financial systems that were just using a crypto tool as a new way to launder money to, the Ukraine and
Wherever
back to
it
the
is.
DNC and wherever it
Right.
went, and all the pockets, all the politicians on both sides of the aisle. And wherever else, and so that's the part that I get so frustrated with, is like this kind of, behavior has been happening with legacy finance for a long time. Printing derivatives, talk about print. Everybody's up in arms about printing derivatives. My God, what has the United States Fed been doing for all these, these years?
Derivatives are the nature, like they're the whoop and wharf of shadow banking. They're the way that you allow rehypothecation of rehypothecated assets over and over again.
It's the way
in
you
an
steal
unregulated
from
way.
the people, though.
Yeah.
And I think that's what is being kind of skipped over, is like, okay, you guys are really upset about this. Do you know what your Fed does every time you go to
Mhm.
sleep? And any dollars you have under your pillow just became less.
Right.
Every
Well, how
time
much
they print more.
What do you think this has to do with the fact that people don't quite get yet? And the messaging has been designed to make sure that it's hard to get. That a good portion of what regulators do right now is automated into public, transparent blockchains, where if you had the right systems in place to monitor, like similar to the way that Chainalysis does tracking scammers, you could understand precisely what these big actors were doing. Like you would have been able to build a dashboard to make sure something like FTX was caught right when it was happening, as opposed to finding out later, if we were focused on solving the problem that way.
They knew exactly what was happening. I mean, FTX was meeting with the SEC for, weeks. They all knew.
I'm using royal we in the sense of everybody on the
know.
internet, right?
Yeah.
Like,
It's just, frustrating.
Yeah, if anybody who's tried to even talk to any of, well, I'll just say a lot of the financial entities, that they're not interested in that. It's the same. It's the same across the board. It's the weirdest thing in the world that, you guys know, I'm more interested in the non-financial aspects of the tech. The financial's amazing, but it's just everybody else is looking at that. So I like to look at the things that are maybe not as obvious, but
right.
You talk to anybody about the way that you can fix, not necessarily fix whether or not you believe election results are valid. The fix that's needed is the ability to independently prove those election results. So I don't need to trust some counters in a back room. I don't need to trust some machine from either or any party in some freaking district
Right.
to know that I could myself look at those results. Right.
It needs to be an incorruptible record that shows
For some
that your
reason,
vote is in.
Nobody's interested in that. Why are they not interested in it? Because they're already using what's there to do what they want to do. They don't want
I think it's
that
deeper
transparency.
than that, though, Joe.
But it's the same thing with financials. If you talk to the bank, you talk to any of the exchanges. We've talked to all the major exchanges about the ability to prove there's no front running, the ability to prove you're not wash trading, the ability to prove your reserves. No interest.
I think people think you're talking about like a fairy tale, though, when you talk about stuff like that.
How's it
everyone's been raised their whole life, and generations have been raised that there is no trustless anything. You have to put your trust in something from birth to death. It's your parents, it's the government, it's whoever. So to say, hey, you can have these legacy systems that you've depended on, you need in your life, and they can be trustless. It's literally like someone's talking about like magic or a fairy tale, and you can ride a unicorn to school, kid. It's like, yeah, okay, man. People don't they can't grasp it.
No, but it's not that. It isn't that. It is not that though, Sean. I understand when people don't get it, but that you can get past that pretty easily. This is literally that they don't want it. You tell them that they believe it's possible. We went to an accounting firm, and I say they provide. It's a major accounting software company. You guys all. Everybody knows the name of this company. We sat down with them, and we told them, look, you have all of these different groups using your software, right? Both locally and, you provide it as a service. All of that stuff should be on chain. Why? Because of liabilities. It's like, what if you had somebody who is in organized crime that gets hired into your organization, and now all of a sudden you get sued late? That's going to be a major scandal. You're going to have to pay off the press to not report on, right? Because that's what they do. I used to work at Disney. I know this,
buy
right?
the company beforehand.
And so one way or another, right? We told him that. It's like, no, he said, but that's the thing. We want them to trust us. We don't want them to know, to have some trust. We want them to trust us. And I it's this thing where, guys, at least put it in the background. At least do it don't tell anybody you're doing it. But that way, when you get sued, when somebody does this, or even better, you can watch for people changing the books, especially, from your admin panel, right? That type of thing. We offered the same thing to Twitter, so they could have objective, how do I say, when they were having trouble politically because they were banning based on politics, we said, put in a smart contract where you can prove that an objective process went through, and it's all recorded. You can make whatever parts transparent that you want. And it's like it's definitely not that they didn't get it. These are tech people. They got what's possible, but it's just crazy.
So that's an interesting question. Do you think the Twitter files will reveal something later about this? Do you guys think there is an SEC Twitter files, or crypto Twitter files, if you will, just waiting to be exposed that nobody has reported yet, because it's a little further down the priority list, or because they haven't had the right reporter come forward to say, hey, let me go through this shit and figure it out and do another Twitter files report? You guys, speculation on that front? I think
the Twitter files is a marketing machine born by Musk to keep Twitter relevant after he bought it and overpaid for it.
Absolutely. Yes.
That's what the Twitter files are. So,
but it also reveals information that human beings did not have access to before. We have confirmation on some ideas.
Actually, I think the interesting thing, whether you're looking at the amount of money spent, whether that made sense or not, the odd thing about it is historically. So if I'm an historian coming back 100 years from now, the fact that this is one sliver. Now, Twitter is bigger than Reddit. I don't know if it's bigger than Facebook. It's like it is a pretty big platform, and has
Facebook Insta is definitely bigger for sure.
It has prime ministers, it has presidents on it, it has all of these people on it, and it was doing a lot of things with nation state intel directing them. And so you have to think, how much of that's happening at Google? We know it is. How much is happening at Meta? We know it is. How much is happening at Reddit? We know it is. So this is just one slice. And why the hell did they fight so hard to keep him from getting in there? It's because there's some shit in there, and it's mostly probably about Fauci and that stuff. Frankly,
I think there's a lot broader.
Big.
I think the stuff about coronavirus is just one tentacle of the Hydra, so to speak, here, or one tentacle of the cuttlefish. What I want to know is how frequently was Gensler in communication with some division at Twitter, and what were they? I mean, the SEC charges a hell of a lot of violations on Twitter compared to the huge realm of
this is true
non-bank financial institutions they have regulatory ambit over. Yeah. It floors me a bit that so much of their time seems dedicated to crypto and enforcing what CEOs say on Twitter, or what scammers say on Twitter, for that matter.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's such a small fraction of the overall thing they have purview over.
I want to see you guys. I don't know if you guys care to weigh in on this, but I have this long running theory that I still believe that the reason that Musk bought Twitter was that he wants to take down the SEC. That if you remember all the crap that he had when he tweeted about taking the company private, right? And that they wouldn't let him tweet anymore.
They censored
and
his free speech. Told him he couldn't do that.
It was crazy.
Funding
and
secured.
Then he started in on the Doge stuff, and I think that he was just trying to get them to, that's busy work that they're going to have to call in. It's like, oh, you're doing pump and dump on Doge. It's like, I've never sold any, right? It's just a funny thing. I even believed he didn't have any at the time. But it's an interesting thing because now he's in there, and I don't know.
One thing that you can't credit Elon Musk with is a whole lot of aggressive understanding of the crypto space, right?
True.
Like he has, I think, in my estimation, a lot of bitterness left over from the PayPal thing. I think he had some visions for it early, and I think that he was naturally, someone who could have been in this industry back then, but has a lot of baggage left over from that and how he thinks about reforming finance through innovation. Because ultimately you get your fingers into that pie, you start getting paid actors super interested in what you're up to.
Yeah, well, I'm going to throw my opinion in. Twitter, as a traditional social media entity, is a waste of money for a purchase. I don't think it's ever been very profitable 2 or 3 quarters in a row, if ever. Mm-hmm. And it's still struggling to find a business model. Yeah. But I do think Musk has vision, and he's not the only one. If I were to have Twitter, I would use it as a platform. Imagine if you purchased Twitter, you paid 100% more than what it's worth to everybody else as a social media platform.
Right.
You could have a problem advertising. You're doing Twitter Blue with very low margins. How are you going to make money with it? Okay. Right. Stop trying to sell things through Twitter and use Twitter for what it is, a social platform.
Yep.
So Twitter is a way to implement the Lightning Network. So now you could do micropayments, okay, in almost real time with very, very little cost. So now you have your own peer-to-peer payment system.
Mm-hmm.
A. B, it's pervasive. So Twitter becomes the new Tesla net, or WhisperNet, whatever Tesla uses for its internet communications between the cars. Imagine if every car had Twitter and Lightning embedded in its firmware, mm-hmm. and it was intelligent, and you can have Teslas in traffic, and there's enough of them now where they could bid with each other. They could bid with each other to move ahead of in traffic. So one Tesla says, for 5,000 Satoshis, I let you go by. Okay. They can bid on charging stations. They can transfer all types of information, real-time information on police cameras, accidents, suspicious individuals. This car was broken in. The mm-hmm. cameras capture a face. It can spread around to other Teslas, share with the police department.
Right. Well, with smart contracts too, if you add in an integration with a smart contract based chain, you've got some really interesting opportunities there too, right? Like between Twitter and your municipal governance system, for instance, there could be a system where your car literally has a wallet on it that negotiates with the parking spaces, and all of a sudden parking enforcement is now something that you don't need.
Why would you need Twitter for any of that?
To trust,
Twitter,
right?
I mean, that's private network stuff. Why would you ever want that on Twitter?
Putting your tinfoil hat on.
Well, just the protocol. Really.
How much would it cost?
Why do you need?
How much would it cost to have a second civil war? How much would it cost to take down the federal government?
People like to talk about the system still.
How much would it cost to do all that?
More than anybody has.
I'll tell you right now, the Twitter files have changed me. I was already jaded and the grumpy guy. Now, America's dead. America is 100% dead. It's on life support. That the only thing keeping it alive is the Supreme Court. That's it. Everything is broken. And the Carrie Lake thing, I told Lisa, I was like, if that fails, there's no hope whatsoever. And then I thought about it, and I tweeted this. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And we keep doing that. But
Wait,
with
the
everything
courts are
everyone talks
broken though
about is
too.
fixing the system. But the same people will say the system is completely broken and doesn't work. Then how are you going to fix the broken system with a broken system? It doesn't. That's insane. That literally is insane. And I think that the Twitter files have exposed even more. Number one, it's shut up the loud, the radicals. It's taking away their unbridled authority that they've had. They could sit there, one side could sit there and say, "Oh, kill Trump's kid," and do that, and nothing. And then someone else said, "Man, I'd like to smack that kid." Oh, they're done. Cancel that account. It's finished. It was so blatant to regular people, but it didn't matter. You don't have
the uniformity of narrative is broken. It's made the hypocrisy a lot more bold-faced.
And now he came and he is just, and everyone's so pissed, but he's not one side. It's just fair. He's literally just making it a level playing field where, hey, you're in trouble for saying that. You're a Republican. Yeah, well, you're still in trouble.
Yeah, his tweet
on
the
other side's like, oh my God,
funny.
Elon Musk is taking away my account. Yeah, because you did something that was wrong, and I think one side has had just free reign, and now they're really, really pissed. Also, this was their vehicle, and they lost it. It was their main.
It was their favorite toy.
Yeah, it was. It was their favorite toy, and now they have to share it.
Well, and sharing it defeats their purpose for it. So in a way, it's been taken away from them.
But also, it's made me. And me and Lisa talked about this on the show Tuesday when I talked about it. I told her she's a baby killer, and I'm a baby killer, and all of y'all are. Because evil will use your kindness against you as a weakness, and we always make excuses, and we have to stop. We have to stop saying, "Oh, the Chinese people are wonderful people, and their government is what's evil." Oh, the American people.
Well, they are though. Right?
No, they're not, and neither are you, dude.
No, the people.
You are your government. Your government is the people.
That is not.
And
how
we are.
I refuse to accept my
for
government
every
as
kid
my
that was
identity.
killed, every brown kid that's been killed in the Middle East. I let it happen. I'm letting it happen right now. And so are you. In Canada, do you know what they've done to their VA? They passed. They passed assisted suicide. It's legal. So there's people that call the VA with PTSD, and they say, "Hey, man, we really can't get you in for counseling, but we could have you in tomorrow and kill you." I'm not kidding.
Right? No, you're talking about the euthanasia thing. Yeah.
A woman called up to get, because she's a veteran, and she's trying to get a ramp put in her house that she's been calling for 5 years. Forget about that. But they said, "We can't get the ramp done this year, but we can kill you." And she complained. A lot of the veterans are complaining because of like, dude, I have PTSD. I was calling for a counseling appointment, and they said I should kill myself. So it's a little scandal, but this woman complained and sent letters to the head of whatever the Veterans Affairs. It's called something different. The press goes to the guy. He goes, "Oh, I had no idea about this." And then she says, "Yes, you did. I wrote you specifically." "No, you didn't. I've never gotten anything. I'm sorry." And she said, "Yeah, I sent it certified with return receipt. Here's your signature." And then he's like,
"Huh. We didn't read it."
So he's like, "Okay,
I can't read."
If Western civilization is going to die, it's because nobody read it. Like seriously, the people who like send
every
emails.
Canadian, you got to take responsibility for that.
I didn't read it.
That's your government. That's our government. Is our government, and we're cowards for not standing up and fixing it.
Well, I mean, is that first off, I would say, how would one live in this world and have a life and a family of any sort, right? And also resist it in the way that you would require, such that you wouldn't be individually culpable for the group's actions, which I don't really think is possible.
And here's the thing: we've allowed it to get so bad that you don't deserve, and I don't deserve, to have the happy life.
I disagree.
Well, that's coming though. I think that's a matter of thresholds. So I think that's coming.
That's where I'm at now. That's where I'm at in the past 2 weeks. I'm like, dude, we've let it get so bad that You know, it's like it's just like it's. And I hate using this parallel because everybody does, but dude, it's just like the Nazis, man. You let it go. You had so many times you could have said, no, that's too far. And you let it go. You let it go because it wasn't you, or because it was easier to, or because you wanted to have that semblance of a normal life. And in the end, you're going to lose it anyway.
I think when you do the things that are lawful, that do say no, when you go and you have your voice heard, you write to your congressman or woman, you do the voting, all that, and it continues to not be heard. At some point, you stop operating in that system and you start building things somewhere else. And that's what that's where I felt drawn to take action and build somewhere else outside of that system, because I understand my actions don't have power or weight inside that system.
Yeah. Right. Parallel systems are a means of resistance, right? We saw that work in East Germany, right? Before the wall came down, the people there had built an entirely independent world, such that I don't remember the exact quote, that when the official system spoke, that it was sort of nonsensical and distant. It didn't really have anything to do with this, that, or the other of the parallel system. And I think that's the world we're in right now. So I don't think there's, I mean, Sean, I understand where you're coming from and why you might feel that way, but I don't think there's reason for absolute despair yet, right? The fact.
Looks like we got pretty far off the DeFi route, but
if you look at what's happening with him, he's going to be sacrificed. I think that's what's obvious.
Who is this?
Who?
Sam, SBF. I think he's going to be sacrificed. He's going to get in trouble. But if you step back, and I always say this, dude, with everything, step back and look at the bigger picture. They tried. It all came out, and they put him on a book tour. They tried to say, "Hey, man, he's not so bad."
Yeah.
And people weren't having it. They're like, "No, we're not that stupid."
Yeah.
And now there's this switch where all the media is like, hey, "This guy's pretty bad." And then there's cries for him to have, there's going to be some kind of fraud charges, and lo and behold, he's getting charged. Still, there's no outcry about the bond and the judge, who I mean, that was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And how does that happen? And no one's explained how that can happen. How you can have a structure of the system. The system says that if you have a bail, and it's $1,000. I've paid a bail for someone. If you have a bail of $1,000, you have to go put $1,000 down at the court, and then they let the person out. And then when they go to court, you get your $1,000.
No, actually, it's not. If you have bail of $1,000, you could go to a bondsman.
That's not bail. That's not a bail. I said what a bail was. Or you have $1,000 bail. You go to a bondsman. You give them $150. Then they use a signature because they're insured, but basically they're saying we'll pay the $1,000 if they don't show up, and that's a professional thing. But they pay the $1,000, and you give $150, and you don't get that back. That's service. Right. So now I've paid bail.
Real quick though.
So I went there. I put the $1,000 down. It was $1,200, and then when they went to court, I got my $1,200 back. So that's how it works for anyone. That's the system. He had a $250 million bail, so he should have had to go to a bondsman, paid $40 million, $50 million, maybe something.
25.
But he put down a house, not even money, a house that they would have to sell for $4 million, and they didn't even let him go on a PR bond. So there's that really doesn't even enter in.
Well, he did have to sacrifice
his
this
works.
Travel
dollars.
Right?
How's that the system?
The judges are actually engaging in a bit of equitable decision making, right? Like they can decide what is likely to secure someone's appearance in court and call it good for the bond. Like it's actually within the court's power. They don't use that power on regular everyday people.
Did you guys?
But when you have people like SBF, who's got Stanford and Harvard or Harvard or MIT connections or whatever.
But then the judge steps down after that and says, "Oh yeah, my husband worked for them, so
because they have to recuse this stuff." To be honest, I avoid a lot of this, but do you really think that dude is a flight risk? Where the hell is he going to go? If there's anybody who's not a flight risk, he might be a suicide risk. but he is not a flight risk. Where is he
I
going
don't
to go?
understand why people didn't just pay that money.
There are
Few
places he could
people
go
that probably want to kill him.
He has no place to go. Okay, if he does go, it's going to be worse than going to jail. Okay, and if he goes, especially if his parents put the bond money up, you know, a lot of people are going to get their feelings hurt because A, they educate themselves through the media versus primary sources, and so you're not privy to the facts. And if he gets off, everybody's going to scream bloody murder. And he could get off on a technicality, possibly didn't even do it. I don't know. Honestly, I don't care because the entire FTX debacle was born from ignorance from the investors. You know, there's a big venture capital firm that refused to fund me and funded him during his pitch when he was playing League of Legends, and they knew it. And they bragged about him playing League of Legends. Put $250 million in, they'll never see that money again. They don't deserve to see that money again.
Yeah, but you know, some of those same VCs want to kill crypto, and you also know that anybody who put in 250 million might very well have gotten that 250 million out before any of this shit happened because they knew it was going on
back another way.
They probably got it back in a kickback directly, or it went to whoever they wanted the money to go to launder it. That's the shit that happens. And
but it's irrelevant. The question is, it's irrelevant.
But it is relevant because they want to kill crypto. That's the whole reason this thing exists.
The bill that he's been drafting with Gensler is really what's more interesting about it.
I don't know too many VCs who want to kill crypto. They want to make money off of crypto, and so they want to control it. That's not killing.
Right.
Crypto it is captured.
It is
long time ago.
You can't do
Reggie, if assume for a second that you're a cypherpunk and you believe that the system ought to be replaced with cryptocurrency as a basis, and that the whole dollar system ought to be decentralized and taken away from power structures.
Right.
Assuming you believe that, right, that what they want to do with it is functionally killing its soul.
Right. Okay. But
that's the
cypherpunks generally don't understand global macroeconomics. They don't understand the way the system works. If they did, honestly, to replace anybody who says the dollar is going to die, right?
It's not necessarily going to die, but we could.
I know. I'm giving you an example. I'm not saying it's going to die. I'm not saying the guys are wrong. But if you have that mentality and you understand global macro, the only way for the dollar to die is it has to be replaced.
Right.
Okay. There is nothing currently available that has the depth, the breadth, or the military might, or the geopolitical influence of the dollar. Hence, yet always works because you can only live in the present. So right now, the dollar won't die in the foreseeable future, right?
But you've listened to music before, right?
Say it again.
You've listened to music before, right? If you only live in the present, you can't hear a song, right?
Right. But global military might and music are not the same thing, right? The dollar is a reserve currency.
Quite a bit more
and when the easiest way to understand who the reserve currency holder is, doesn't need a PhD in economics, and you don't need to be a historian. You look for the largest gun. The largest gun is always a reserve currency holder. What was the reserve currency before the US dollar?
Right. The reserve currency would have been, the reserve currency has probably always been gold, but the British pound, right, was before.
No, it hasn't always been gold because the fact that it's called the British pound is what reason?
It was the sterling.
Yeah, the sterling.
Right. The pound sterling.
Silver would have been the classical basis, right? When we're talking about like the mercantilism years.
Right, but it was the pound as in the paper pound.
Well, that's the thing. You look at
just hear out the logic. So the reason the paper pound was a global reserve currency is because Great Britain had by far the most powerful navy and military in the world. Hence imperialism, and that's why more people speak English around the world than any other language. They called it the pound sterling because that one piece of paper was worth 1 pound of sterling silver. Right. But the silver wasn't the reserve currency because the silver didn't have the military. Great Britain did. Right? After the pound, the US became the global reserve currency, not because they had a whole bunch of gold, because they had the strongest military. To replace the US dollar, the replacement will need to have the strongest military. Now, the
Or
nature of war has
something
changed,
that
so not so much bullets.
If you look at
You know,
history, though,
what
going
about
along
the
with
fact
that,
that cryptography
Britain was
Oh,
like the world
one at
power.
a time. So
The U.S. was then the world power, and then there was the Soviet Union, and France. What was it? France. We owed France gold. We owned Britain gold. Britain came and said, "Hey, you owe us all this, hard currency." And we were like, "Yeah, here's some paper." They're like, "Well, but we want, our fit." And they're like, "Yeah, we're not going to give it to you." So that's it.
and why was the U.S. able to do that?
But that's when they started to fall,
Because
right?
of the military.
And then France, they sent a warship
cryptography is the
to
answer
New
to
York
this.
Harbor and said, "Yeah, we're here to pick up our money." And
And what happened?
We gave it.
And what happened?
We gave it to them.
No, the reason why the U.S. can
Hold on, I want to finish telling you your part.
Okay, go ahead.
We and then we
Another
use,
point,
like you
right?
said, instead of using just military, we use our money, and we killed the Soviet Union. We broke their money machine. You're right, not their military. And by breaking their money, now we can see the fruits of that with the Ukrainian war. It's the military is nowhere near what we thought it was. It's a facade. It's still pretty good. It's still fairly technological, but on a smaller scale. If they were a smaller country, it would be a massive, it'd be incredible. But on a scope of huge, they don't have, they've got like 20 amazing jets where they used to have, thousands, hundreds. We broke the money first. I think the Soviet Union is the perfect thing. We broke the money and the military followed. And I think we're at that point now, and I think the U.S. realizes that. So you have, if our money is breaking, you're going to have to put all of it in and keep the military way far ahead, like light years ahead of everything, so we don't find ourselves in a Russian predicament 20 years down the road.
In a world though, where cyber is the new theater, though, right? Like if that is warfare, then cryptography can place individuals on par with nation states in terms of the power they can exercise unilaterally, right? The fact that we have this ability to publish software that's based on that, and that software can run economic systems, and if we build it the right way, can be sort of unresponsive to violent behavior. Like literally no amount of violence will solve a math problem. So
I want to ask you guys something before we move on, though. Especially you guys,
cryptography has the power to nullify.
I think you're good. You got to let Reggie have a chance to respond.
I'm curious what your take is on the fact that that cryptography could essentially ignore all of that force. That we could build a system that you can't take down without having to blow up the world to do it.
Okay, well, like I said, I don't know if I said it earlier, but yeah, I did. The nature of war has changed. So it's not so much bullets and bombs. Okay, it is global macroeconomic warfare, cyber warfare. So the Soviet Union was destroyed a long time ago. You're referring to Russia, but you're calling it the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union broke apart.
Did I?
Okay,
sorry,
there is no more.
Freudian
They were
slip.
defeated.
90s kid.
Right, and they were defeated, right, through geopolitical might. Not a single bullet was fired at the Soviet Union. They were defeated without bullets and bombs.
There was a lot of proxy wars.
Yeah, I was going to say that too.
Technically, they were mostly defeated by individuals acting in East Germany, but
No, that's geopolitical might. They don't listen. Those skirmishes against the power structure just don't organically pop up. Okay,
No,
they
but
were
they're all
manipulated.
required. You have to, especially back in the Cold War, you have to demonstrate that you have the military might. So you do it in a proxy war. Then you hit them without going thermonuclear. You hit them in the bank, and that's what we did in several ways too.
Socialism.
And you're right. It was. Yeah, I don't think that it's changed. I mean, yes, it might have changed. There now is electronics involved with cyber, but you always had. How do I say? You always had to do deceit. I mean, you look at Art of War. That stuff existed way back then. That you have to trick them. You have to. So anyway, Anyway,
the difference between an art of war times and now is that technology allows this to be leveraged significantly. It is much more efficient. We've been fighting war with China. We've been fighting wars with Russia through various Middle East countries who didn't toe the U.S. line, right? Iran. Stuxnet. Look at Stuxnet.
Oh yeah, that was pretty messed
Beautiful.
up.
So
there's a good chance we already have one of those installed in their systems too.
Yeah, the U.S. is by far the most cybernetically advanced war machine in the world. That almost guaranteed. Okay, when that's no longer the case, the U.S. will no longer be the reserve currency. You can tell when we lose might, because then the dollar wouldn't be the dollar. It'd be, right now there's nobody to fill in the blank. Because
so if we were to deploy,
the way the world works now, you need both the military might and you need breadth and depth and liquidity of
so
the
if we were
currency.
to deploy an uninterdictable system, something that was entirely decentralized in all the right places, while still optimized for performance, right? Let's say 5 years from now, ETH 3.0 comes out, and it includes storage for hosting and the ability for smart contracts to pay for infrastructure, right? You could have systems up that no amount of violence could bring down.
On
that
no
point,
sovereign would adopt that because the sovereign needs
to ask
control.
you guys, especially you three. Me and Lisa talked about this on our show. The Southwest Airlines being shut down. Lisa has a friend who's married to a pilot who gave her a bunch of information that it was their software is what caused everything. That the pilots are there, everything's there, the planes are ready, everything, but the software won't allow them to go. And I wanted to know your point on that. How hard would that? How valid is that? How hard would it be to fix? Is that a real thing? Is it an excuse, or do you think it was an attack on their software?
I read they had a call center issue. The way that they redistribute their pilots was, or the way that
Lisa can give you the actual information. She's got the information.
I saw an article yesterday too that said it was an attack.
I said it was an attack. If it was the Southwest.
Yeah.
And then I've seen stories now, and this is another thing. You remember I told you, Lisa, that Southwest was the thorn when Trump was a socialist and bailed out the airlines because Southwest didn't need it. Southwest always ran a tight ship. They always put customers first, and they should have been able to, all those other airlines in a free market should have folded, and Southwest should have been able to buy all the planes and everything for pennies. That's how a free market works. They should have been rewarded for being the best company.
Yeah,
they should have audited their software.
And they said that. They said that, and that's how it should have worked. But they were the thorn in the establishment side during that time. And now the government is talking about going after them. The Department of Transportation, they're going to launch an investigation into Southwest.
They took that bailout money, man.
The chair, like the head of the that department, their kids were flying and were grounded. So she's really pissed off. She was on like some morning show about it. But it's all like really, really, they're hitting them way harder than I've ever seen, and faster than I've seen anything go before in the government. It looks so targeted. But yeah, if you're hearing that, attack
is not favored by elites, but that could be a topic for another day. But I think we should probably move on to DeFi because we have some people who asked some questions we should probably get to. Guys, this has been a great discussion. Holy shit, Reggie, thank you for sharing your insights too.
You're welcome. I love to talk trash.
Yeah, awesome. And I love trying to pose questions to somebody who actually has a pretty good view of macroeconomics. So, all right. So question number one, we've got Juicy J, and he asks, how is DeFi useful in borrowing and lending? It's a good question. Who wants to take this one first?
Well, it cuts out the middleman in most cases, and that's where a big amount of the cost is.
It's a weird thing, though, because in DeFi, if you're going to lend someone something, how do you ever get it back, right? You have to put up collateral. So to me, I'm going to say this. I think borrowing and lending in crypto is not that useful, or not that how do I say this? It seems crazy to me. Let's use crypto, this great new invention, to bring usury into the next generation, right? It's ridiculous. I think the only legitimate, and I say the only, I don't know, it might be a little bit too far, but the only legitimate reason that I see for borrowing and lending in crypto, because if I already have the Bitcoin to put up for collateral, why don't I just use it? Because there's a tax reason that the borrowing doesn't incur a tax event, whereas selling the crypto in order to buy the house, there's a tax event all of a sudden. So okay, I'll take my Bitcoin, I'll put it over here, and I'll borrow the money, and I'll buy the house. Now I have to pay it as usury, where I should have just been able to buy the house in the first place. So
I thought that years ago when it all started, like actually before the DeFi was called DeFi, and it didn't make sense to me. It was kind of stupid. Then the tax thing made amazing sense, but it's like you guys always say, those things aren't built yet. What I think is missing, and Celsius was almost there, but it was centralized, and there's been projects. Oh my, I don't even remember the names of them because I talked about them like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But
Salt,
a big no. I mean, they didn't make it. It was one. It was pawning stuff. It was crazy and amazing when you could pawn your stuff, but the way they had it all, the idea in the white paper. This was back in the days of just white papers. They had this massive community. Some of the community were experts, and they could earn, earn a lot for doing stuff. They would earn by, verifying that, like if you want to hack a Rolex or get a loan for a Rolex, it all went into a smart contract. You could send the Rolex in to I think there was like a centralized point, or but anyway, they would verify the Rolex. They could verify by pictures and so on. Someone could put up something or send the Rolex in. Then you could loan someone money on it once you had it verified. And then it was all based on reputation. That's the main thing.
It lowers the cost.
Credit score. And something has to be built, it has to be big enough and around long enough to where there can be a reputation score or a credit score. And based on fees, there has to be a treasury built in so people don't have to put up. They can just use their reputation, get a loan, and then if they default, you have an insured amount from the treasury. You might not get the full loan back, but you'll get 50% back or something like that, and that person can't borrow anything ever again because they're.
To me, the power of it is really in the ability to experiment that it unlocks. Right, this is a highly regulated space that is hard to get into at all, even experimentally. If you want to do it with traditional forms of banking, right? If you want to use cash, if you want to use US dollars, and you want to experiment with a new way to collateralize toothbrushes to whatever, right? Name your product, name your idea. You will be able to experiment with that in crypto and DeFi, and you will not be able to experiment with that in traditional banking unless you are already set up with connections and you already have powerful players. It's going to drive up the cost such that a good chunk of ideas where collateral would be a useful way to replace credit scores will be too expensive to execute on. Right? We don't have collateral. You can't borrow money to buy a toothbrush yet. But if we were to have a DeFi based system, we might be able to afford that.
A sad thing, I saw an ad that you can borrow money to buy a pizza now. Literally, you guys have probably seen that, right? They're advertising.
Yeah,
to me, that's great.
Borrow money to buy a pizza, and I'm like,
I saw the one where you get the credit card immediately to get a candy bar, and that one I was just like, stop.
Well, to me,
Lisa told me about that. I thought it was crazy, great. And then I saw the commercial.
That's magic.
So help me out. Are those good things or bad things?
Those are bad things.
Well, they're indicators of bad.
Walk me through it. How is it bad?
You don't have enough money to buy a candy bar, which is something bad for you. So you're going to go in debt quickly. Look how quick you can go in debt and get your fix and walk out and then have regret and not have anything for it.
No, for me,
so Lisa, I like you, so I'm going to tell you right now, I'm simply taking the other side of whatever argument you guys are putting out, girls. So don't take it.
I think I'm on Reggie's side on this one, actually.
So realize that the credit and lending system is used by everybody. I know as you were talking about Musk earlier, Musk was allegedly the richest man in the world. Musk likely has very, very, very little cash. Okay. Working class people think of wealth as money. It is not. Wealth is usually productive assets. The more remember Masada? Money is a depreciating asset. The more money you have, the poorer you are, because money is the least respected in the U.S. taxation system, has the lowest return, okay, and is the easiest to take away. So when Musk needs to get something like a private jet, he has to go get a credit line from J.P. Morgan or Goldman Sachs. And they'll lock up a certain amount of his stock as collateral, and they'll say, here's a 40 LTV loan on it. So you give us $300 million, $400 million of stock, we'll give you $160 million in terms of a credit line. You could go get that jet. That's how the very wealthy work. They don't use cash.
This is the rich man, poor man mindset kind of thing, where having an appreciating asset, growing up with, if you own a building in New York, yes, you're never going to sell it. You just continually take loans against it, and the value of it goes up, which is what should happen with Bitcoin.
That I can use.
Yeah, but also you have a private jet.
Sean, buying a private jet that you can use as a CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, or buying that building is quite different than buying a pizza on 4 installments.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
No. I disagree. I disagree. If you're personally buying a private jet, it depreciates very quickly.
Have shit.
Okay, I don't give a shit about the private jet. Talk about the fucking building, and it's like I don't care. It's like
all you have
a loan to buy a private jet.
The poor guy who went into debt, he literally just has a toilet full of shit.
After 10 years,
that's all he has. He has a toilet full of shit, and he flushes it.
Okay, so let's talk about the candy bar now. Okay, right? Just because you borrow money to eat a candy bar doesn't mean that's what going into debt. Look at the terms of the loan. Right, that starts accumulating after.
You could say, but look at the terms.
Well, we're talking about this commercial.
On the pizza, it's $10 for pizza, or it's $20 over 4 installments
with Apple Pay or whatever.
Okay,
there's an interest rate to buy the candy.
Hey guys, let Reggie say something.
So the key is, okay, if you have the efficiency to send small amounts of money for a payment and to make that payment a debt, that's a good thing. Okay. Now, misusing it or preying upon somebody is a bad thing. But you can only prey upon people who are preyable on. I made that up, but victims. Okay. So as long as you understand what debt is for, right? I normally would never use debt for anything that doesn't produce income.
Yeah.
Okay. To service the debt.
Well, and a candy bar does not produce income.
Right. But hold on. I would use debt for a candy. Well, I don't eat candy, but let's say a steak. Right, I would use that for a stake, right, as a stopgap measure, so I wouldn't have to liquidate an asset, and by the end of the month, I pay it off. And, no skin off my back.
I'm going to take.
That's how. 1 second, let me land my plane. I'll let you go. That's how charge cards work. I haven't used credit cards since I was like 20 years old. I got one to rent a car, okay, and then I realized they gave me $350 cash back. I'm like, that's strange because I didn't pay any interest. Where'd the money come from? You know where the money comes from for cash back on credit cards, right? But I'll let you know. They charged the vendor 3%, and they cut me 1% as a cash back deal. I don't pay any interest. I pay them nothing. But they charge the vendor for access to this liquidity for all these buyers. And then they just give me 33% of what they charge the vendor.
Right.
So
by offering the reward, it's a benefit to the product they're selling the vendor.
It is hypocritical. I agree, and I thought of that before you said it. And I'm gonna pick on Lisa because I love her and she's like my sister. But
Reggie,
don't you have an American Express that you use and you all month and then you just pay it off? Isn't that kind of the same thing?
Yeah, I don't use credit cards at all. I got one credit card from the bank, but I don't believe, like I said, personally, I don't believe in using debt for anything that doesn't have a cash flow unless I find that I can pull the trigger on something significantly below
And
this
I'm going to
leverage.
bring in here that I wonder why DeFi focuses on something such as borrowing and lending, usury. It's like, oh, we're going to make money instead of the things that we could solve with
exactly.
DeFi
That is a good
and
point.
crypto.
It's a very lofty goal that I think it can replace with the right systems.
All it is,
we have to grow this. We have to grow the system.
This is
first.
the human problem with. It's the same thing that you saw with boy bands. That once one is successful, everybody's like, "Oh, we need to do that. We need to do that." And so you have this. And you remember in the '90s, all the boy bands, right? The same damn thing happens in crypto. They look at banks and like, "How did the bank make us? We could do that too in crypto." We could do what the banks have been doing.
We can do it without banks, meaning we cut out the cost center.
But that's the whole damn point. Yes, you can do the valuable things that banks do without banks, right? But what really is that? Is that usury? Is that
part of it
you're calling debt usury, and then
it's like Reggie said.
Guys,
if for it to work,
and borrowing
we have to
preserve
change the
value of
mindset
valuable
of
assets
people
for you,
to where it's like
such
the
that you don't have to
rich
liquidate
dad,
them.
poor dad thing.
But when the
They
cost of it
think
gives that
of using
brings
debt to
you the
build
tools
money.
of the rich.
They need to say, I have so much money that I can now use a non-taxable event and I can get money to do what I want to do. So, but people don't think that way.
We
They
haven't
think
talked
of
about
debt
flash loans.
as getting something that I want before I have the money to pay for it.
Yeah, but that's what most consumers
So
do.
it is about also changing the mindset of people to think like wealthy people.
That's the only reason I brought it up. It's an indicator that people don't understand what the hell's going on and that the economy's in really bad shape. If you are literally advertising that you can buy your pizza in installments, there's something wrong. I don't care whether it's good or bad.
That sounds sketchy.
People are free to do it.
It all depends on the terms of the installments, man. It's all in the fine print.
Yeah,
here,
dude.
Who here is against stable coins? Is
that's
anybody?
That's been around forever, dude. I lived on borrowed pizza. When I was younger.
Let me push.
And I live in a military area, so maybe it's different. But we could post date a check up to 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
I'm against stable
some
coins.
places would advertise you can post date it till the first. So you were buying pizzas on the 2nd of the month and post dating checks for the 1st of the next month. And I was a fucking financial advisor at the time, so that was dumb. And then I would be talking to people who were so far in debt because they had post dated checks. Because everyone let you do it. Whatever it was, you could post date checks till, whenever in a military area. So, the first would roll around and all the checks would hit and they would have like hardly any money. So it was a cycle. Then you're post dating or you're getting payday loans.
I get it.
I'm saying it's an indicator of interest.
I don't even care what the terms are. It's an indicator that people can't afford the dinner that they want. It's like you go make a sandwich. It's like, no, I want a pizza. I'm gonna buy it in installments. There's just an indicator that there's something wrong there.
No, I don't agree with that. If you're incurring negative cash flow or debt service,
I'm not trying to rate their financial acumen here. I'm trying to say I think it's an indicator that people
of our current economy.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I have to have the pizza, and so I can't afford it.
And I understand and agree. I just disagree with you. Listen, right? Where does money look better? In my pocket or your pocket? Tell me.
In my pocket.
That's a great question.
Okay, Lisa said in her pocket. So if you could buy a pizza and keep your money in your pocket and not lose money on the transaction.
Yeah, I think that's the problem is with most credit cards or any card that I know of.
I think you're hitting the wrong.
The money doesn't stay in the person's pocket. They end up paying even more for the pizza or the candy bar or whatever than if they had just paid for it originally.
Right.
I think you're all right.
That's a valid point. I hear you, but you can't assume that's the case.
I think you're all right.
People do pay attention.
I can assume quite a bit about somebody. I can assume quite a bit, Reggie.
When you would
if somebody is going to,
y'all got to do one at a time because
installments.
I have 2 ears, but they're all focused on one person. So one at a time.
Okay, Jesse. Jesse.
I was going to say you're
Joe,
all right.
Then John.
Back in the day, you could post it the checks and it didn't cost anything. So it was really smart for the pizza places because you're like, man, we can sell more. And kind of we can exploit people's what's the aisle when you're leaving? Impulse. They're impulse buying, and we can make more money. And then people weren't really losing money. They were just blowing their own money on maybe stuff they shouldn't, but it didn't cost any more. And then I remember towards the end, they were like, hey, you can post a check for $2 or for $5 or whatever. But it did also indicate how bad the military's pay structure was at the time, because they couldn't afford to buy a pizza on that day. Their money didn't last. Also, they didn't have to, budget and spend their money.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Realize if you cut post-dated checks in a high interest rate environment, you make a lot of money. You're basically double spending. So again, it's really a simple math thing. I just wanted to, because I'm going to push back on each and every argument. I don't care where you are. I'm just taking the opposite side. So this is fun.
It's great. It's a great. No, it's
so
fun.
if you're against debt in DeFi, you are by definition against stablecoins as they're implemented now. Almost all of them.
Yeah.
Is
I don't
that
like
agreed?
stablecoins. I think the only reason that stablecoins are ridiculous and silly. I don't even know why they exist, frankly. I know why, for legitimate reasons. No, but
well, what's the legitimate reason that exists? Because people need stability if they're going to exchange for fiat sovereign.
I don't want to get into that. I would rather get to the point I was trying to make before, but whatever.
Okay.
Let's just skip to the next. Whatever. No.
Okay. Well, and I say that because the stablecoin business model is predicated on debt. Okay, that's why it works. Without that, nobody would issue stablecoins, or they'd have to charge fees.
Right.
But if you're going to issue a stablecoin free of fees, then that has to be part of the equation.
Yeah. What do you use stablecoins for then, Reggie?
Say it again.
What do you use it for?
They use stablecoins for stability, but my stablecoin of choice is the US dollar.
I personally prefer Reflexor because it's not anchored to any nation state derived fiat, which I like. But
I might say Bitcoin.
What is it anchored to?
It's actually anchored to a stabilizing algorithm that's a floating peg. It allows the peg to move, but dampens the volatility of the underlying assets. It's pretty slick.
So
it's a way to start to divorce us from the idea that we need men with guns to make a stable unit of exchange.
I use Sean Coin.
See, the problem with that though is if you live in the U.S. and you have engaged in commerce with a counterparty who uses U.S. dollar, it's quite possible that peg moves against you. And if it moves in your favor, it'll move against you as well.
It's possible, but it's also possible that inflation is out of control.
Excuse me?
It also accounts for the risk of inflation imposed by central banks, right? Like that's the hedge, right?
Yeah, but
the whole point of it is you can have a more stable coin than just the underlying asset. Have something that you can exercise instead of disposing of your wealth, and also maintain that hedge against inflation that you get when you're not, basing the intrinsic unit on something that is currently being depreciated pretty aggressively by overprinting, right?
Yeah, but the enemy is not inflation if you're in the US, okay, and Asia and Euro actually area. The enemy is real rates. You still have negative real rates. As a matter of fact, real rates are much more negative now by about 400% than they were a year ago. And rates have went up. The 1-year rate has went up 8,300% from 5 basis points to like 4.67%. And the real interest rate is deeply negative by about 4 times more than it was a year ago. So if you're going to hedge, you have to hedge against real rate loss.
Right.
But
which
sort of go ahead, Rich. Go ahead.
Right. Which is a bigger problem, right? But part of that
it's the only problem. I want to make sure we stick to it's the only problem.
No, it's not the only problem though, right? The problem.
What are the other problems?
The other problems are very local and specific to me and the way that I view this industry headed. But I think it's
in terms of stable coins,
in terms of stable coins,
the conversation we were having.
It is bad for the narrative of decentralization, period, to have things or have an artifice that's meant to anchor crypto anything to the value of something set by fiat. right?
agree with that.
Like
I agree.
divorcing ourselves from
yeah.
that system needs to
It's-
be possible.
In the very least, it was a
if you're going to
propaganda.
believe in the underlying values that founded this whole movement.
In the very
Right.
least, there's a propaganda failure because it has not only was everybody trying to
plausible
tie
alternatives.
their Bitcoin to the value of $1. Now they regiment that into all the stable coins that we use. They're all based on the dollar, and it's just a purely number go up focused pile because that a Bitcoin is a Bitcoin, and if the Bitcoin could do more, then a Bitcoin would be more valuable than whatever its current dollar price is. The problem is
Right.
Bitcoin can't do more, but everybody in the Bitcoin world wanted to attach it to the U.S. financial world so they could make that number go up because they don't really give a shit about Bitcoin. As maximalist as they may be, they don't care if it does more. All they care about is leveraging it to get more dollars to buy their Bahamian resort, right? And that's all it is, and that's why it's all bullshit. And until we get past that, it's not going to matter. And when they say a Bitcoin is going to be worth more when it's maximum, when it's worth nothing, because a dollar is worth nothing if it failed or something. But that's kind of pointless too, because if the dollar fails and Bitcoin can still do so little as it can today, then it's not going to be worth that much. And it's like, okay, I could send some money to you without, in some cases, I don't need Bitcoin. I can hand you cash. I can use the existing traditional systems. I don't know. There's a bunch of stuff that it's like they stalled it because they started to focus on the number. So
I think we're already addressing the question, but I wanted to get Jacob Wayne's question on the board here. Did DeFi fail as a whole, or is it that only if they modeled their project after centralized fiat banking schemes? I think we've been talking about that, but
I think he kind of answered his own question. I think the answer is no, it didn't fail as a whole. But what did fail is because they modeled certain things after the centralized fiat.
Well, help me out. I must have missed part of this conversation. Where did DeFi fail at all?
Yeah.
I think with like FTX, with Celsius.
But that's not. Those are all very centralized entities. Where did DeFi fail?
I can say in adoption.
Okay.
I can say they've not attacked the right problems. Again, the first question. It's like lending. Did we really need a solution to lending in crypto? It's like I understand it's interesting, experimental. Absolutely, it's cool. It's way better than what central banks would do. But do we really need that? Was that really the pressing question?
I believe you did need it because debt, particularly frictionless debt, micropayment debt, is a valuable tool to build other things.
I think we need it very bad. Our goal is to take down the legacy system.
That has not failed. You've had some execution errors with attacks on flash loans and all that, but those are coding errors, and it didn't fail. It's
it was functioning as intended. Someone just used it in a way that nobody actually.
They basically read the contract and they knew what the contract was supposed to do. So it's a mistake.
But
they read
the
directions basically.
It has so far
failed. DeFi has not failed to my knowledge. So by asking, did DeFi fail completely? You need to explain to me how it failed partially first.
I think the way to explain that is that you're an enlightened person, right? And that you're talking about normies. Normies watch the news and say, "Oh, that's completely failed. That's terrible. That's a bad thing." The same.
Well, I mean,
not to say what, but it's like people saying, "Oh, Bitcoin is just for druggies and for selling people and weapons and dark web stuff." And I don't understand any of that. It's bad. It's bad. No. And I think
you got to put facts in then.
Well, that's where I said you're an enlightened person. I think we're enlightened people because we've been educated on it. But when someone says DeFi has failed, it has failed because reality, your perception is reality, and the perception to the bulk of normal people is that this has failed. It's wrong. Oh, Celsius. Oh, FTX. Oh,
that's a bad.
And then you just say, well, that's not really DeFi.
It's a bad narrative for us.
That's like saying voice over IP and video over the internet has failed because you had a bad connection. It didn't fail. Look, FTX, US, solvent and operational. FTX that failed was registered in the Bahamas. It was a foreign entity that was highly centralized. Nothing to do with US DeFi, nothing to do with global DeFi, period. And those are simple facts.
Right.
That's it.
Wait a minute. You
So
just
people
said
don't
Enron
like
style fraud,
facts.
right?
And people,
I'm sorry, say it
like I
again?
said, people,
Enron
okay,
style fraud.
Hold on, it's hard to understand. You're doing it at the same
right?
time. So
You know the
say it
new
again.
VW Bug, the Volkswagen, Beetle. The
Yeah,
new one?
my father had one back in the 70s, actually.
Right, but you know the new ones.
Yeah.
Okay, they're called Volkswagen Beetles, and that's not what they were. That's not what they are. When they came out, they were the new Volkswagen Jetta, like the Jetta L or something. And
I had one of
everybody
those
called
too.
them the new VW Bug. Everyone.
Those were cool.
It was on the
What?
Drew Carey show.
What?
He said, "Oh, I got a new VW Bug," and you know what?
What?
That's just what they started calling them. And now Volkswagen even calls them that. And
Right.
That's because the perception made the reality. And the perception with most people, you can give them facts. And some people will take the facts and they'll be like, oh, okay, I see. And other people will be like, yeah, but whatever.
See, now
Don't care.
there are three industries that does not work in: finance, law, and
wait, all right.
finance, law, and medicine. That doesn't work. You can't, in other words, in finance, law, and medicine. Okay, in finance, right, especially high finance with lots of leverage.
Only do you
You say, you say, I meant 1%, but you said 1 basis point. You're out of business. Okay, period. You cannot, in other words, in medicine, you say, well, I meant to get my tonsils removed. Instead, you got a circumcision. You can't, in other words, it. So
yes, you can.
Perception is definitely not reality in medicine.
I'm going to give you this
okay.
loan.
Perception is not reality in finance, and even worse, perception is definitely not reality in law.
This month.
I think
All right,
25%
can
I'm glad I got all you guys talking. I feel like I've arrived.
Anyone else speak? Okay, Reggie, I'm sorry, but you can't say, we've been living through the past couple of years here where a vaccine is not a vaccine anymore, where a lockdown never happened, where history didn't happen, where the bankers can get away with anything they damn well please. They might pay a fine, but it doesn't really matter. Too big to fail. I mean, there are memes based on
but the piper pays itself, right?
Ultimately. Perception is reality, especially over time.
Disagree.
Absolutely, it is.
Perception is perception. Perception is perception.
Okay, whatever.
If you think perception is reality, honestly, let's take medicine where it's ultimate, right? And I hate to be morbid. You get cancer, lethal cancer.
We're not
2% of survival, 2% survival rate, right? Do you really think you're going to change your reality by perception?
We're not talking about that, Reggie. We're talking about.
I gave you 3 industries: medicine,
okay, hold on,
finance, and law. Where reality is reality and perception is perception.
I would like to say something. Okay,
sure.
My mother had uterine cancer. My mother had 80 polyps in her uterus. My mother was going to die. My mother had a very positive outlook and went to church and was prayed over, and went back to San Antonio to the military doctor. It's all gone. Cancer.
Okay.
Completely gone. So much so that the whole army was pissed. They were mad.
The army was pissed that your mother lived?
They still took your uterus out, and they're like, what the hell's going on? And they're like, we must have messed up. She's like, you messed up in 5 different hospitals, like 100 million different tests. They were angry because her perception, and you could say that it was God, you could say that it was the universe, you could say it was positive thing, whatever, but it's not absolute. It's not.
Exceptions prove rules, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. If the majority of people out there think that DeFi failed, it's not going to matter. You can until you're blue in the face. You tell that's not really DeFi. It's not really DeFi. It's not going to matter. You're going to have to come up with a different word for it, and that's just the way things work.
That's narrative.
Yeah,
that's how business.
But none of that has to do with DeFi failing. Look, the whole world could think DeFi failed, and I could still clear a swap. And the swap clears.
Right. In New York,
you can say it failed, you can perceive it failed. Until I cannot clear the swap.
No, let's go to absolutes. I'm going to get this in. I'm going to talk, please. If you say the entire world believes that DeFi failed, who the fuck are you swapping with?
You can swap with whoever you want.
No, that's what I'm saying. You just told me
I'll give you an
everybody
example.
else
I'm going to give
believes
you a
the DeFi
direct,
failed.
simple, quick
Who the
answer
fuck
to
are
your
you
question.
swapping with?
I'm going to give you a direct, simple, quick answer. I'll swap with Lisa because Lisa won't use it. No, I'm using DeFi in the background. Voila.
Okay. Well, all right. So
You see?
whatever.
Okay, and
Listen,
Point
reality,
is,
reality,
got a
talking
good
about
perception,
point.
perception.
semantics.
It's just that
Let's-
simple.
But
Let's
it's
look
a
at the system right
legitimate
now as
business
it
model
stands,
to
and
use
narrative
perception.
is destroying it. Right?
There-
I think
it's been
we're
a
Okay,
legitimate
you're
business
doing the
model.
same time again.
Hold on,
So
let me talk.
at a
It's been
time.
a
So I can at
legitimate
least,
business model for businesses
Greg, you're the
to
host.
use perception
I know.
to kill a competitor. In New York, when I was a kid, there was a generic soda company that black people were buying tons of it. It was in all like bodegas and like dollar stores, and it was grape soda and orange soda. That's what like all they sold. And one of the big soda companies put out rumors everywhere that it made you sterile because it was so cheap. There was something in it that made people sterile. And
Sure.
something that it even made your penis smaller. I swear you can look this up. It was hilarious when I was a kid. And they got exposed, got caught. But the soda company went out of business. It was a local soda company up north. They went out of business because everyone stopped buying it.
Right.
Everyone stopped buying, and they had a niche market. They targeted a certain group of people. They targeted a certain economic group of people, and they were doing well, and they're about to explode, but they did too well, and the big guys noticed it, and they literally used perception to kill. And that's all companies do that. They put out a rumor to create a perception, and once you kill a product, it's dead. It doesn't matter if it worked. The reality is, it's gone. It's dead. And
Right.
I think if only people believe that DeFi is bad, then that's what killing it, or that's why other people think it's dead. Because, like Joe said, if there's not other people to do DeFi with,
And
there's
why do
no
you think that is?
decentralization.
Why do you think that they are pushing? You know, it's like immediately after FTX failed, and FTX isn't DeFi. Okay, I agree with you on that, Reggie. None of this shit is DeFi. Okay, but the point is, they are trying to tarnish all of crypto with this, right? Why do they care?
Who is they?
Like,
okay,
I'm not gonna. Maybe I can
don't
answer
do
that.
that.
Maybe I can't. I'm a little bit censored on some of that shit. So normal people aren't even in the space from AD. They don't even know what crypto is. But we should stoop down to their level. It's like that's not the damn point. The point is that those people will go along with the senators who want to say, "Oh, we're going to put bigger barriers and bigger barriers." And yes, DeFi then is great, but the point is then it's harder to use DeFi. It's harder to actually cash out if they kill all the exchanges. That there's a reason that they're doing that they are trying to tarnish it. And I say they, it's the banks, it's whoever might have a already
the current market makers, right?
Exactly. Well, the people that control the financials and or these other industries that might be disrupted, that they don't want this shit to come into
the same
being.
Folks who decided it was important to put out a news release about pig butchering crypto scammers, right?
Yeah,
they're spreading a narrative.
Right.
But do you really think that DeFi as it stands today is going to disrupt like the banks? Is that your belief?
No, that's why I'm so disinterested in DeFi, because I think it is such a small amount of what can be done with this tech, and it happens to be going up against the guys with the most money, and it's obvious. It's like you don't get multiple senators years back. What was it, 2013 maybe, calling for crypto to be banned if the banks didn't fear that what was coming.
Well,
with Bitcoin.
Well, after everybody else talks, I'm going to throw like a bunch of real facts in. You might not like it, but they're facts. So go ahead. I'm going to talk fast. Go ahead.
Before we move on to the next question, guys, I just wanted to toss this in, just a way to maybe conceptualize, because I don't think we disagree. I think we're talking about two different things. In the long term, what we're seeing right now with narrative is it's being used to destroy a system that is objectively destroyable if you use it wrong, right? Like I feel like what Reggie's been saying is, ultimately you can't lie to the numbers and get them to obey. You can try to lie to the people for as long as you can, but that doesn't make the system stable. It just makes people ignore the instability, right? So you can end up with a situation where it seems like, they've used narrative to banish DeFi using, FTX as a hobgoblin and pretending, preying on people's ignorance to use it that way. But ultimately, if you have a system that's based on unstable ground, it's going to collapse on itself, right? And I think what he was saying was that DeFi itself, the concepts underlying it are still sound. It's just that narrative right now has it relatively backed into a corner in disfavor. A lot of people believe it's dead. Doesn't make it dead.
The thing I'm arguing, it makes it harder to get real adoption. It was already hard to get adoption,
right?
And with this shit, it's going to make it far harder.
The hurdles got higher, but the race is still long.
I disagree with that as well, but I'll explain why. But go ahead.
Fair enough. But let's go on and for what's worth, it's a great discussion, guys. Like
let me throw my 2 cents in after you're done. Okay, are you done?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so adoption in DeFi has been increasing significantly and will pick up even faster. It's not dying. What the regulators, particularly the SEC, and the they that you're talking about, I'll call the they money center banks and national and global financial entities. Okay, they already control most of crypto. Look at the most valuable infrastructure. People are still focusing on token go up, when moon. That's not where the power, that's not where the real value is. It's in the infrastructure. Okay? Yes. Who owns Infura? Literally, who owns Infura, the IP?
Infura is owned by Consensus currently.
No,
but
it's owned by JP Morgan.
Consensus is, I was about to say, Consensus is heavily controlled by JP Morgan.
The actual Infura IP is owned by JP Morgan and
they
MetaMask.
Actually own it? Interesting.
If I'm not mistaken, yes. They did a
lawsuit on that right now.
There was a fraudulent transfer lawsuit, but look at who's the most prolific investor in the space, the entire crypto space.
Right. That would be
the big banks,
the
right?
usual suspects.
It,
right?
it would be DCG,
Digital Currency Group, the biggest one.
Digital Currency Group, which was started by Barry Silver, who sold Second Market, and Second Market got his big bang when it started buying and selling Bitcoin before it was liquid. He sold Second Market to Citibank, if I'm not mistaken, or NASDAQ. Sold it to NASDAQ. Then he created Digital Currency Group. Digital Currency Group, 66% of the shareholders are money center banks, Fidelity, BlackRock, etc. They are the most prodigious investor of private equity in the space and tokens. Okay, they've had a couple of liquidity events such as Coinbase, etc., but they're the biggest investor. And Wells Fargo, Citibank, etc., are the biggest investors of the biggest investor.
The third or fourth biggest is the U.S. government too.
But Infura is not the only game in town.
The third or fourth biggest is the U.S. government.
Well, I'm picking Infura as an example. They own much more than that. Consensus is the biggest developer in Ethereum, and Ethereum has the most development developer share in the industry. Okay, and it's not just Ethereum. They have it across the board. I know this because I studied very rigorously because I feel the vast majority of them are using my IP. And so I know their business better than they do. You'll see in a few hours, maybe after 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, is probably going to hit the news wires, and you'll see I'm back at it again, hitting at infrastructure. And it's who owns it? I do or they do. But if you realize that the banks already control most of this, they're definitely not trying to kill crypto. What they're trying to do is they're trying to make it a security. And if you make it a security, then you have to have a broker-dealer's license to transfer it, which means the banks now control it in totality.
Well, part of controlling it is killing.
Which is why
they're not killing it. If they kill it, they can't benefit from it.
You don't
kill the golden goose because you don't have any more eggs.
Right,
but
Reggie,
you want to take it.
Reggie, they're killing the idea of it not needing.
You're killing it because that's what it is.
Which it technically doesn't from a technical standpoint.
On top of the fact, anyone who isn't cooperating and isn't, if you aren't in my consensus and Ethereum dungeon, then you die. You cannot. That is killing the rest of the projects, Reggie.
But it's not just consensus and Ethereum. There are a lot of projects that are going through.
Okay, a fucking example, Reggie. Do you get the damn point? right?
No, I don't agree with your point.
So they're not trying to kill
I may
crypto.
get it, but I don't
They're
agree
not
with
trying
it.
to kill crypto.
Whether it's
You're
alive
fine
or
with
They're not
whether
trying to
it's-
kill.
it's
Yeah,
They wanna
I'll
keep
be
it
very
alive.
specific.
They
They're not
wanna
trying to
keep it
kill
alive.
crypto.
dead and the
What
other
they're
way
trying to
around
do is they're trying to kill entrepreneurial crypto. Self-sovereign finance. Self-sovereign finance
Okay, I'll
is
use
the
your terms
antithesis.
from now
Is
on,
the
Reggie.
antithesis
You can
of
agree
a
with me.
profitable
You're
banking
trying
system.
to kill
Right, exactly. Oh yeah,
entrepreneurial
no, you're absolutely
crypto,
right.
Reggie.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we're all here when we
Yeah, there's
talk
so
about
many
it. We're
things we all
probably all
agree
talking
on.
about the first.
Like
I
one
honestly
little
can't
thing.
understand what you're saying because you're talking at the same time
Well,
again.
let's hit
So
the
go
last.
ahead.
Let's hit the last question.
Yep.
What? Say it again.
Let's hit the last question.
Yeah.
Last question.
Okay.
Okay, so I am for I am says, how should DeFi using blockchain be done right? In other words, what legacy financial systems should be replaced using a blockchain and be decentralized? Good question.
This is what I said about in the first question. And it's the problem that you guys bring up so many times. It's not just the number go up people. I think all of us in crypto in general want it now. Why isn't Bitcoin $1 million? Why isn't this doing this? Why isn't Ethereum 2.0 out? Well, let's forget about that. So that's legitimate. But there's like so many things that people want it right now. And they don't understand that, like, in the business world or in anything, it's like years. A video game takes a decade to make sometimes, and people want something like right now. And I think they did that with DeFi. They're like, look what we could do. And they try to jump ahead. And there's so many, and it's not that they're bad if we're talking about making it like the banking system. Certain systems need to be in place for it to work. That's why they're in place in those other systems. And it's not the controlling systems. It's the reputation systems. We need to have a credit system and a credit score to know if you can loan people money so they don't have to put up a huge amount of collateral, so that it is viable, so that it is a real thing.
What about people
those systems need to be built and put in place in order for us to have an actual decentralized financial system.
What about people that prefer collateral and would prefer to leave reputation out of it?
Why you want to argue with me? Of course, you jerk. Yes, but the reason why it failed is because we didn't have legitimate, real systems in place that were part of those other systems that made them work. We literally said, "Hey, give me $100 and I'll loan you 50." That's not what real loans work. That's not how they work in the real world. That's how rich people do it. They're like, "Hey, I'm going to establish these forms of credit when I don't need it, and everything's perfect, and I can get these lines set up. And then when I need it and I'm in a crunch, the credit lines are there. I can just write pieces of paper, and I can get everything that I need." Most people don't think that. Most people literally go into debt to buy a pizza. We've made the point.
Okay, Lisa, how would you answer this question? You've been quiet for a minute.
Oh, I just was over here hanging out by myself.
No, I just wanted to say, hey, I'm like bringing in the conversation.
I don't know. As far as solving it, I mean, I think we keep trying to use legacy systems and implementing those in crypto, and that's not the way out. I do think Reggie's point and I started to see it when one of my friends was doing the whole, I think it was Celsius thing, and they had that rich man, poor man conversation with me about an appreciating asset. And so I think there is that point of the education of being able to hold an appreciating asset, but you're still working within whatever systems. That's the other thing. So because even if I'm all in crypto, but I'm doing it, I'm getting a loan on my Bitcoin so I can buy a house, I'm still in this system. So that's where I see like such a need for crypto in all systems, so that the contracts really are peer-to-peer in all markets. And I don't know that I have a great answer, but
no, I think that speaks to it well.
Well, I can
what about
say
you,
something.
Joe?
Something that's important is people should start thinking more directly about the capabilities that are present in this technology. too often they're like, okay, it's a financial technology and it's DeFi, so I can do this and the banks do that. Why can't I? And they aren't really thinking about the reason that, or I don't say the reason, the capabilities that are present. I mean, Satoshi it was probably a smart thing to do. He could have written Namecoin instead and solved the DNS issue and SSL keys and things like this instead of attacking currency. But he attacked currency probably because it's a harder challenge. And if you can make that work, then it's proven, correct? It's just an interesting thing that it provides transparency. It provides independent proof. The fact that a currency works is not the base of Bitcoin. It is that you're providing a measurable power, basically proof that I did this in this block, which inside of that block is just a bunch of transfers, and that's why it works. But the transfers are the use of it. But the capability is that I can independently prove that ledger, right? So I can know that you have that balance when you try to send it to me, and I can.
So what you're saying is like we need to examine the underlying metaphors that we use to construct the industries we currently have to begin with, and reevaluate the capabilities we have now before we start building, building a thing that builds in a lot of skeuomorphic assumptions about how things have to work.
Right,
because they don't necessarily have to work that way anymore.
It can at least contribute to a priority list. Like if you were an entrepreneur wanting to know what should I attack, what should be valuable in this market, you would look at those capabilities, how they matched up with actual needs, and what utility can be applied to those needs from those capabilities, and then you could organize it. And some of them are going to be a lot harder to build. They might be very valuable. Some of them are going to be easier to build and are really valuable, and you can kind of prioritize what may be valuable to put together right now.
You know what? I'm going to give you guys the perfect example, and Lisa, I'm going to pick on her because number one, I love to pick on Lisa, but
it's
number
just
two,
his thing lately.
Dude, number two, when I make my point, Lisa's not like other people. She's like, oh, that's a really good point. I'm going to change my view, which most people don't do. So here's something. Here's something about the dumb part of DeFi where it works. Now, like you said, so first, I think that we have to build in saying, oh, that's a legacy financial system. It's evil. It's all wrong. That's closed-minded and wrong. And that's why DeFi will fail. It's the other side of the coin. You have to build the systems and improve the systems that work and are good, like a credit score for individuals.
Yeah. Now you're going against everything you just said earlier about fixing a broken system with a broken system. Now you're double talking.
We're not going to have voting when we fix the system again. We're not going to have police. We're still going to have those, but the oversight, the way the founders laid it out worked, and we went against what they said. That's the end of that. But now let me ask you this. You said that, oh, I'm going to use my Bitcoin and take a loan and buy a house. That's wrong. That's terrible and blah, blah, blah.
I did not say that was wrong and terrible.
You said it was wrong.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you're still
misunderstood what I said.
But how much would you have if you bought $1 worth of Bitcoin back over 10 years ago? How much, Lisa? You told me Tuesday. You're muted.
22 million.
$22 million.
Yeah, $22
million. I just said that because I heard
it was like
no, it is 22 million. Was that well? It's what I saw quoted. And I didn't do the math.
So that's $1.
But I did not say that it was wrong to take a loan against Bitcoin and buy a home. My issue was buying a candy bar on a credit card.
No. You just
I know you're going to charge 7% on.
She said that you're just in that other system. If you are only using Bitcoin to get the number go up, to cash it out, to do the things
to buy a house.
With the dollars. Yes, to buy a house. She was saying you're still participating in that dollar
saying there
system.
are still issues in that other system of the buying the house. You're still like have the tax issues. You're still going to have there's other problems that need to be solved was my point. So you're skewing my point.
So if you took a loan, if you took a loan 10 years ago,
here we go. I got it right here.
If you had enough Bitcoin, If you had enough
I'm gonna
Bitcoin
make
to buy a
a
house 10
beautiful
years
point.
ago, and you borrowed against it to buy a house, that would be one of the best financial
Hold on one
moves you've
second.
ever
Yeah,
made.
that's my point. Oh my God, you just made my point.
You know?
Oh my God.
Brilliant.
You made my point. You took my
Right.
point from me. Okay,
But see,
hold on.
I think
No, hold on.
the issue
Hold on.
that might be okay.
I'm
real
going to
quick
have to
here.
get to
Hold
work
on.
soon,
Yeah,
fellas.
you
So
may
if you
have
don't mind,
misunderstood
I might
me,
have to.
Sean, but that's
Very
No,
well.
hold
Hey, guys.
on.
guys,
Um,
guys, the
Hold on.
issue
Oh
is
my
not
God.
this is
Getting close
not
to time
this
here.
is not this is not a program about finances and how to make the better trades. Okay, Lisa literally made the point that you know you choose to. I for one think that Bitcoin will be worth more if we were actually using Bitcoin and not converting it to dollars. Okay, that those Bitcoin would be worth a lot more than at 22 million. Now, if it actually did anything more than it actually does, it doesn't do much, right?
Right.
Um,
So it's a fair perspective. You know, just to touch back on the question though, real fast.
Before you go, I actually have to get to work because you know I have a lot of people to piss off and I'm falling behind. So,
Oh, you gotta go, man. Thank you so much for coming.
okay.
It's always good to have you on here. Your contrarian perspective is, you know, not only great for conversation, but enlightening as well.
I want to make the one other point. If you buy that house back then, you had $100,000 worth of Bitcoin when it was super cheap. You got a loan on it, you'd still have your Bitcoin. You just have to pay your house off. And the Bitcoin would be worth $1 billion. Imagine where we'd be today if Bitcoin Pizza just got a loan on his Bitcoin to buy the damn pizza.
Fuck yeah. I think you just nailed the candy bar argument.
That's
all right.
it.
I disagree though, because if Lisa would have bought her candy bar, it would be she'd be upside down on her loan if she bought it a year ago, right?
Okay.
I don't know how flat it's been, right?
Got to figure out how to sign off though.
Oh no, it's in the leave studio button. There you go. Okay, cool. Real fast, I wanted to throw in an answer to this question, to Jacob Wayne's question. I think the key is to leave it open, because we heard like lots of different smart ideas from a lot of different points of view, and you can't say anybody in particular was wrong, other than that they just didn't share framings, right? We were all sort of arguing at the same end from a different set of assumptions, but I think the number one thing we can do is allow trial and error to make DeFi built right, to make it so that we can try different things and have them fail, and not have it result in a whole bunch of shit getting set as off limits by men with guns.
I do want to say something too. You have to be careful, because the crypto world tends to lead into that. The financial is like, haha, I have the bigger dick. I made the better trade. I have millions now. You don't. Fuck you. I bought NFTs. It was like, what if
Lisa's always saying that to me, man.
Okay. It's such bullshit. And I'll tell you this. I totally agree with this. A system rooted in debt will lead to slavery. That's what it fucking is. If you're in debt, you are a slave. Now, you might choose to escape from that slavery by going against whatever you agreed to, you know,
right?
And that might even be,
especially when the house controls the interest rates.
Honorable. I have no idea, but that is the truth. And if you're going to just deal with like, oh, I should have, because you can say it at any point. Bitcoin could have gone nowhere when it was $1. You know, I bought Bitcoin at $2 when I first bought it. How much? I bought $30 worth, right? Stupid me, right? But it's like at the same time, what the fuck is Bitcoin when it was $2, right?
Right.
Who knows what it's like? Oh, it ends up $14. It's like, oh my God. I had a friend who sold I think $10,000 worth of Bitcoin when it was in the 30s, right? I mean, it's like, was he stupid? No, he paid.
Imagine the people who set up CPU miners back when you can still win with that.
Then the point is, if I were to take that loan out of my Bitcoin today to buy that house, I might very well be upside down on that loan next year, right? It's like, oh, this is a better trade. It's like, you're not smart enough. It's like, that's ridiculous. It's like we're talking, if we want to talk about fundamentals, it is about slavery. And that's why Bitcoin exists. Bitcoin did not exist so that your fucking friendly crypto bro on Twitter could brag about his holdings. That is not the fucking reason that Bitcoin, that's not the reason I'm here, right? So if ever we get down that, I'm like, okay, guys, I fucking give up. If that's what it's going to be, it's like, I'm totally out. I have no interest in that shit.
I'm with you, Joe.
I might as well have just gone and gotten a job at Goldman fucking Sachs when I got out of school, and now it would be one of those fucking guys, right?
Yeah.
That's not why I'm
if the
here.
industry stops being about setting us free, we're failing, right?
Well, I think this whole show was about the opposite of just setting us free. It was about like, oh no, it's monetary, and it's like I don't get it. So
we were talking about literally finance,
useful
which
perspectives.
is
I know, but DeFi has a place. Bitcoin itself is DeFi. Bitcoin itself is DeFi. It is cash that I can send to you. That is a known utility, an absolute, something that didn't exist before.
But cash is finance.
Okay,
it's
guys. Sadly, we are way past time, but but you're right. I think that I think you're on point with this one, Joe. I think this merits further discussion in another episode because some of the stuff that Reggie was talking about did start from the presumption that having the ideals firmly eradicated from the ecosystem is not a loss.
Yeah. Well, we do have parallel systems in 2 weeks that I think is very, very keenly pointed to that. It's like it's maybe a little more generic, but yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry, guys. Or it was like too much.
But yeah, let's get our outro done. Let's talk about what we're up to. Sean, what are you up to? Tell us about what's going on.
Stuff. I got I don't think I'm doing an interview this week with McCabe about the new Lightning Works NFT comic series that they're coming out with. Siege Worlds is already out. It's a really cool MMO game.
Oh, cool.
And he sent me a Portal NFT, which is really cool for the comic. It looks amazing. They have the artists and it looks really, really cool.
Neat.
And they have some artists from DC, I believe, that have worked on comics there. It looks really cool. That's about it. Happy New Year and all that.
Cool. Lisa, what's new with you? What's going on?
Well, you can see Sean and I fighting every Tuesday evening. Half the show's on my show. Oh no, you just pick on me. That's right. We don't fight. Yeah. Half the show's on my show. Half the show's on his show. And then also I'm in the Mighty Lair on Den.Social and really enjoying that. And that's where people can make suggestions for topics for our happy hour show. I kind of love the way that you guys do World Blockchain Roundtable here and get more involvement from the community. So we were wanting to have an opportunity to do a little bit of that too. So people can check us out there.
Cool. Joe, your go.
Tons going on, and the holidays make everything really hard to like organize stuff, right? So super happy Dragon Lucky. Watch that next week. World Blockchain Roundtable again next week. Is next week actually the first of the year? Is that right?
Next week is the first of the year.
That'll be nice. So it's I generally am against New Year's resolutions. So I want to try to be on there and see if we were required to give a New Year's resolution, or if we can just criticize others, or is it a bet thing? I don't know what it is, but either way, so that'll be a good show, though. I do think, right? And
wait, next week's the 6th.
Is it? What is it not?
You're the 5th. Next week is the 5th.
Yeah. This weekend is New Year's Eve. So yeah,
Sunday.
Right.
Yeah. So it'll be the very
that would be the first
one of those years when the holiday doesn't get people out of work.
Yes. Yeah. So anyway, that'll be good. And I don't know, there are a couple of other projects we're working on that I keep hoping that I can announce at some point soon. It'll be fun.
Yep.
So, but sorry. Anyway, that was a good show still, right? I think. I don't know.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Conversations are good to be had. It doesn't have to all end up in roses and
this is true.
Rainbows.
I think we heard some great contrarian opinion. And the discussion that came out of it was good grist for people to think about.
I like hearing Joe get frustrated.
That's pretty easy to get me frustrated, I think.
I think the key takeaway here from my standpoint,
everything will be great.
that I'll leave people with
Semantics are the worst.
I will leave people with this thought. Regardless of your perspective, whether or not you tend to be more of a Reggie or tend to be more of a Joe, if you like cypherpunks and think they ought to win and they can, or if you don't think it's that big of a deal if they're gone, hell, maybe you think that the future of DeFi is NFTs, and we didn't even talk about that possibility, right? The point that I would leave you with is we don't know how it's going to come out. We don't know which soda brands are going to get nerfed because somebody comes with a good propaganda campaign, but there's still going to be carbonated beverages when this is all over. The question is, how do you want to shape it? And that's really up to how the people who are building it decide to do it. So, don't sit here and think that it's one thing or the other when you have the power to build it. And, that's what I'll leave you guys with Rivet. Right now, we are in closed beta with Polygon, and it will be out to the general public after the first of the year. You will see campaigns hopefully all over your screens if our marketing team is doing its job. So at that, Happy New Year, everybody, and we'll see you after the calendar flip. Fuck 2022. Hopefully 2023 doesn't disappoint us as much as 2021 and 2022 did. Oh yeah, and for fuck's sake, go on WikiLeaks and talk about Julian Assange. We might actually be able to stop him from getting extradited.
Ah, nice. Yes.
You know, could stop him from being extradited. Piece of crap English people, like you piece of crap Canadians, you piece of crap Americans. 1% of 1% of 1% of 1% of your population just walk down to the prison and get him, man. That's all you got.
We should totally do. If he comes here, that's what we're going to do. We're just going to have a rally and walk him out of the prison.
Yeah, if he comes here, we don't even need that many, because we got those.
Our audience is probably big enough to do it.
Get our local sheriff, and we can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Copy of the Constitution.
Y'all take
care. We're over time, but as always, stay classy, San Diego.
Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best.
Adaptable, raw capital, label radical yet rational. A tactical approach is palpable if this animal is fallible, but that conclusion is laughable. So with for all detachable from the mandible, you see it now.